Hello, I'm Joann Held, and I'm part of the worship team for the Catholic community of Hopewell Valley. My job is to be liturgy coordinator at St. James. That includes things like preparing special objects to celebrate the Mass, making sure that we have enough ushers and Eucharistic ministers, and a number of other activities. As you can imagine, things are not normal right now, and most of my activities are very different from what they were before. But one thing that does not change is the liturgical year. Now, you might be wondering, what is the liturgical year? Well, it's a calendar that the church follows throughout the whole world so that on any given Sunday, our whole community throughout the whole world is celebrating the same thing. You're probably familiar with the civil calendar. That would be the calendar that with the new year beginning on January 1st and running all the way till December 31st. There's also the school calendar, which around here begins in early September and runs till mid to late June. There are also other calendars like the fiscal calendar for that's what accountants use when they're keeping track of all their records. The federal fiscal year starts on October 1st. The New Jersey state fiscal year starts on July 1st, so there's lots of different calendars and different times when they start and end. Most of them are 12 months or about 12 months, like the school year is a little less. So the liturgical year that the church follows begins on Advent, the first Sunday of Advent. The first Sunday of Advent falls 4 Sundays before Christmas Day. So that's the beginning. That's our liturgical New Year's Day, is the first Sunday of Advent. That's followed by Christmas, which of course everybody knows is on December 25th. But Christmas is not just that one day. It's too special to just last for one day. It lasts almost 2 weeks. When we sing about the 12 days of Christmas in the famous Christmas carol, that's what we're talking about. A long, extended time to really celebrate Christmas. Then we move into something that the church calls ordinary time. When they use the word ordinary, they don't use it the way that we usually do. It doesn't mean plain or drab or nothing special. The word ordinary for the church is derived from a Latin word that means to count. When we move into ordinary time, we're counting the Sundays. The second Sunday in ordinary time, the 25th Sunday in ordinary time, the 37th Sunday in ordinary time. We count all those weeks. And that's the time when we're really learning our story. We have a few weeks of ordinary time in January and February, and then Lent begins. Lent begins 40 days before Easter. Now, 40 days is not exactly the same as 40 days on your civil calendar, and I could do a whole nother talk about how we count the days of Lent, but it's about 40 days before Easter we begin Lent. That's our time of preparation for celebrating Easter. Now, finally, we get to Easter. Easter, again, is not just one day. It's too important and too complex and too just unbelievable for us to celebrate it in just one day and absorb everything. And so we actually celebrate Easter, We celebrate Easter for 50 days. That's 7 weeks of 7 days each, 49 days plus 1, 50 days of Easter. Easter time ends on Pentecost. And then we go back to ordinary time, continue counting the weeks and learning more about Jesus' ministry until we get back to the beginning of Advent. And that's our liturgical year. Now, when you come to church, there will be clues that will help you to guess which part of the liturgical year we're in. One of those clues will be in the colors that we use. And I want to tell you about the colors of the liturgical year. So remember, the liturgical year begins with Advent. Who knows the color for Advent? I bet you guessed purple, and you're right. Purple is the color of Advent, and we will see the priest wearing a purple stole during all of Advent. We'll see very often a purple altar cloth or purple banners. other kinds of purple in our Advent wreath, lots of kinds of purple. This lets us know that we're in a time of preparation, a time of waiting, and that's what we pick up on when we see this color purple. Then we move to Christmas. Now stop and think, what are the colors of Christmas? I bet many of you guessed green and red. Well, those are the secular colors of Christmas, and you will see some green and red in our church, but the real color for Christmas, the liturgical color for Christmas is white. Why white? Well, this is a tradition that has been developing in the church for centuries and centuries, and when it first began, white was a really difficult color to come by. Only kings and queens wore white because it was so hard to make white material, and if you got a stain on it, you had to throw it away. And so white was a very, very special color, and white is what we reserve for our most important feasts. So the color of Christmas is white. When you come into church on Christmas, you'll see lots of red and green, but you're going to see some white too, especially in the priest and the deacons. Then we move into ordinary time. The color of ordinary time is green. I love that green is the color of ordinary time. To me, this is the color of growing. The time between our big seasons is the time when we reflect on the stories of Jesus, when we remember his ministries and everything he came to tell us about. And it's a time when we can really, really grow spiritually. So green is the color of ordinary time. Then we get back to another season. We get to Lent. Now Lent, the color of Lent is purple. It's also a time of preparation like Advent. It's also a time of more reflection on our own lives, and also just a time of waiting for us to be able to celebrate Easter again. But purple is the color of Lent. Then we come to Easter, and guess what? The color for Easter is white, and sometimes some gold. This is the color you'll see in church for the whole 50 days of Easter. And so that's the liturgical color, white. And finally, we're back to celebrating a little more, or actually many more weeks of ordinary time. So you'll find lots of green in the church during ordinary time. There's one other liturgical color I want to tell you about. It isn't a part of any particular season, but it's a really important liturgical color, and the color is red. Red is worn on two different kinds of occasions. Red is the color of passion and death. It's worn whenever we celebrate the feast of a martyr. We also wear red when we are remembering Jesus' passion and his death. And so Good Friday, for example, we would have red. But red is also the color of the Spirit. And so red is the color that we use for Pentecost and the color that we use when we celebrate confirmation, as we did last weekend. All of our students were wearing red robes to represent the Spirit. Now, why is red the color for both of those things? I like to think it's because the red in our body is our blood. Our blood is what keeps us alive physically. The Spirit is what keeps us alive spiritually. And so they're both how we stay alive, physically and spiritually. Red is the color of life. So those are our liturgical colors. And you're probably saying to yourself now, how am I going to remember all of this? That was a lot of information. Well, one thing you might do is look in the bulletin in a couple of weeks. On the third Sunday of the month, I usually have a column that's called About the Mass. And this coming month, in October, we will be running a little article about the liturgical colors. So it'll be a chance for you to review and to share with your families what you've learned about the colors of the liturgical year. It's been really fun talking to you about the liturgy. I could talk for hours and hours about the liturgy, as you can tell. I ask all of you, next time you come to Mass, next time you're in church, look around and see if you can find clues for where we are in the liturgical year. Thank you.